So RS is actually, like this kind of combination and alignment of factors that came together for me at the perfect time. And it wasn't just one thing that led me to start it. And I would say the base for it lies in the fact about the kind of person I am. I never wanted to be stuck in a regular job. Just it sounds like a cliche, I think, that all entrepreneurs say. But in terms of my career goals, personal goals, I always wanted to build a career in the fashion industry. And it was not just the lure of pretty clothes but it was more about the fact that I always used to be interested in the business side of fashion also, like how do brands strategize in this industry. And in around 2017, I think I started reading a lot about climate change and about the impact of climate change and how the fashion industry is connected to it and what changes need to be done. So I started making, like small changes in my personal consumption habits. So for example, I stopped shopping during the sale seasons because I thought that the very low prices actually induced me to buy things that I wouldn't even wear normally. Or for example, after that I took a slightly more drastic step where I decided to actually not buy any new clothes for one whole year. But as a consumer, I still realized that there was a space missing in the market where I could find reasonably priced clothing in the kind of style that I wanted. Because I think even now a lot of brands are designer-led, by actual fashion designers. So they are catering only to particular style, a particular fit, and obviously the prices are quite expensive, right? So which is why this stereotype and this assumption remains that sustainable fashion is very expensive. And in 2018, I left my job and I was getting out of a very toxic work culture, and it was my brother's wedding. So I thought I would take like a 2-month break before starting my job search. But, in that 2 months time, I started thinking when I was back home in Guwahati. So I started meeting a lot of people also, in the handloom space, in this industry. And, that's how just things came about. I just thought that if I don't take that leap of faith at that time, like if I didn't take it at that time, I would always remain with this what if question over my head. So it was just everything came together for me. I'm from Guwahati, I'm from Assam, but I also have my roots in Meghalaya, where I'm on my dad's side. So as a woman from Northeast, it was also important for me to talk about diversity and representation, right? So on a larger scale, we also do that through our platform. And for me, I would say that I'm just extremely privileged that I'm able to pursue my career goals, do things that I love, but also talk about issues that I'm concerned about. And I can do all of this from, one platform only. So that's just what RS is in a gist. The answer to this question is actually we have to understand first what is sustainable fashion. Like, is it just about handloom products? Is it just about using natural fibers in our clothing? Is it just about sustainable livelihood opportunities? And the answer to that is no, right? It is not just one thing. It is actually sustainability in fashion, as in all other businesses across all industries. It's about looking at the whole picture and the entire value chain. And for fashion, it starts from the crop stage, right? So cotton, linen, even silk, because the silkworms eat the plants of different, eat the leaves of the different plants. These all start at the agricultural stage. So we need to start doing more regenerative agriculture. Then when we move on to the fiber processing stage, which are, especially if you see in the global market, right? So 10 years ago, synthetic fibers used to be only 20% of the fiber share. Today, it is more than 60%. That's just in a decade. And the processing stage, the fiber processing stage, are actually hotspots of carbon emission. So what are we doing at that particular stage? I do reduce the consumption, and obviously because these are dependent on non-renewable fossil fuels. So what are we doing at the production stage of the fiber processing at the stage, right? Then it goes on to the textile workers, the garment workers, providing them a living wage. Currently, we all know the situation that production is done in third world countries, India, Cambodia, Vietnam, Bangladesh, and worker exploitation is pretty rampant. And then the final product itself, like, is it biodegradable? Is it recyclable? Can it be put back in the system? So we need to look at all these issues across the entire value chain when we're talking about sustainable fashion. And which is why I don't call RS a sustainable fashion brand. I always say that we are a fashion brand. Like, we're providing well-designed, well-priced clothing to our consumers. The responsibility of doing that in a responsible manner that we are doing it ethically, that we are not exploiting it, that the institutions are inclusive, that the value chain is non-exploitative, that the resource extraction is non-exploitative, that onus lies on me as a producer. And I think at the stage that what we are in right now in terms of climate change, it's real. I don't think anyone can deny it. All industries, all companies need to include sustainable practices and policies, need to have sustainable reporting, and government regulation needs to be in place for ensuring transparency and accountability, right? So we have to move away. So yes, in terms of like consumer education, it becomes difficult because we don't present this whole information to the customer, and we have to move away from the notion that sustainable fashion is just a niche market. I think it's a bit too early for me to give this advice. Like, I'm still very new. I'm also still learning quite a bit. And especially in the last 2 years, it's been so many roadblocks because of the pandemic. So I am also still learning. So I can only share what I have done up till now. So for example, last year in November, I took the decision to discontinue the production of conventional cotton saris from our product line, right? So because I was reading a lot of scientific journals. We do all of our fabric choices based on the life cycle assessment of the fabric, right, which tells you the carbon, water, and land footprint of the fabric. And conventional cotton is just not sustainable. And a lot of the production is done in India. India is the second largest producer of cotton. There's a lot of water stress in our country. So knowing these facts, I cannot be talking about climate action through my platform if I'm continuing to use conventional cotton, right? So I use a certain minimal amount where there's absolutely no replacement for it. But in terms of actual product, like in terms of, the lining of certain clothes, let's say, there's no organic alternative for it that I've been able to find until now. So I've stopped the product line for the range for this cotton saris. And, it was a very hard decision for me because it's impacted revenues, because cotton saris sell exceedingly well in India. But for me, I had to make a decision between short-term gain or thinking about the long-term benefits. If I have to stay, and if I can't just be preaching about being environmentally responsible and socially responsible if I'm not actually taking the action in my company itself, right? And the reason that I started the company also is because I wanted to make change from within. So you have to make that balance. You have to understand that balance. There are people who've told me you can either have a sustainable business or you can have a profitable business. And I think that notion is so wrong. These are the certain things that we have to fight against. And, just to an entrepreneur, the only thing is that, look at the long-term value that you'll be creating, what is going to be helpful, what will help communities thrive even 30, 40 years down the line. I think that's the most that I can say at this stage, honestly. Theoretically, I would say I really enjoyed my marketing classes. I think there are certain concepts, obviously, that are still applicable even today when building a brand and talking about how to position your brand. So those things have definitely helped me. And it's not always very straightforward, right? Like you just can't cut and paste it, but you have to do, it was a bit of a struggle for me to figure out where exactly to place RS and how to talk about RS, what should the communication be, right? But beyond that, I think I did my MBA when I was just 21, so I was very naive and very young. So I honestly think that I did not absorb as much of it as I probably could have had I done it a few years later. But having said that, that's also what's my learning, right? Like, I think we are, the great thing about IFT is that the locations are very good. You have opportunities to meet different types of people. You're living, when you guys get together, I'm sorry, but like now it's online for you guys, but it's about, really understanding and being self-aware about what your strengths and weaknesses actually are, going beyond class projects, going beyond live projects and internships. The technical outcomes are great. When you're going to join a job, I think all of you guys would be capable enough to pick up the skills within a few weeks of joining the job. But beyond, what has been important for me as an entrepreneur, and even over, as when I used to work in a job, is that the soft skills are grossly underrated, and especially in India, right? So we have to really continue. And it's not as simple as saying, when you're asked in an interview, what are your strengths and the weaknesses? It's not as simple as saying I'm a great team player or I'm good at communication. When it goes more beyond that, it's very nuanced. So we really have to analyze ourselves and know exactly what our strengths and weaknesses are. And I think you can start doing that from your MBA time onwards, because you're exposed to so many different people, so many different topics, so many different things. So you can really understand what you can work on, what needs to be done. Because at the end of the day, you're not trying to be just managers, you're trying to be great leaders, right? That is what everyone's goal is, and actually bringing about change. Just basic things which are underrated. Being assertive, being not aggressive, right? As opposed to being aggressive, having compassion for the people you work with, having, working on your communication skills. It goes beyond just, being able to write an email. It's about making sure that the person in front of you is understanding what you're saying, but you can explain it to them in a very simple, concise manner. So it's basic things like that that I think you can really work on as students also.
What is your life's mantra?
I don't have a mantra as such. I think as of this stage, and I think I just want to be able to achieve what I have in mind, right? Like all these things that I've talked about today, I genuinely want to see it come through with RS. And that's basically what I'm working on right now. So I would say that if I can achieve that, I think I will be able to achieve multiple things. If RS is successful, I would be able to achieve multiple things with just this. So I think that is my life mantra. It really fulfills me from all, both personal and career wise. So I think that's just what I'm working on right now.
One skill or hobby you picked up during the lockdown phase?
Photography. So last year I had just started my company, right? And after 5-6 months it stopped. But I was new, so these hiring people also become expensive, especially right in the beginning. So I decided I should at least know the basics, because content creation is obviously one of the main things that we have to keep doing. So although I'm not an expert, but still I did learn the basics, and it's definitely helped me quite a bit. Yeah.
Ma'am, next question is, what's something that they don't teach you in college that you should probably know?
That's a tough one, because I think I would say just about soft skills, really. I think that's, for me, I've always placed more importance on EQ rather than IQ, because I think jobs are, you can pick up on the job. I believe in on-the-job training more than like theoretical learning, and that's what worked for me. I've always found that easier to do. Everyone has the capability to do that, to pick up on the job skills. But I think what we need to work on, and what is, because it's something that's laughed about, to be honest. I think in a traditional B school, at least that was the case 10 years ago, I don't think people used to care so much about soft skills. I don't know if people still do. Now when I open my LinkedIn, yes, people are always, talking about it and things like that. But in practice, I think it's still underrated.
The next question is, top 3 book or movie recommendations you have for us.
So I do this recommendation to everyone. No one watches it, but I just recently, like maybe you guys should, it's on Netflix. It's called Please Like Me. And it's a beautiful comedy about mental health issues, actually, which they just bring it about in a really beautiful, nuanced way. I'm not actually a very big, Netflix and Prime, like a OTT person actually, but I think Shark Tank, I guess that's great for all of I don't know if you guys have watched it, but it's really interesting.
This will be in my next to watch list.
Yeah, I really recommend Please Like Me to everyone a lot. I advertise for it a lot. Please do watch that.
Will do. What's the favorite part of your current job?
On a larger, very boring answer would be that I'm getting to create something of my own. But specifically, it's about me actually learning. I know certain things that I want to do, right? But it's about learning when to take the decision at what time, basically the execution of it. Like I have that vision or the ideas in my head, but it's about, I've liked how I've grown in the last 2 years and the things that I've been able to work on myself in understanding what I can do better every time.
What is the inspiration behind the name of your startup, Aras?
So actually Aras is I have a video on IGTV for this. I actually skipped through a whole fat dictionary trying to find the name to see one that was not taken. But I came across this word and it actually means, it's an old English word. I don't think it's really used anymore. it means a tapestry that was traditionally used to cover an alcove, right? A secret passageway. And I just thought it would be a good metaphor for talking about the hidden kind of textile traditions about Northeast also, and about just talking about things that we don't generally talk about as a metaphor. So, and it was related to textiles and fabrics. So I just thought it would be a good metaphor. And I wanted very short, simple words, basically. It's good to be able to connect with, people who are from IFCM. So I wish you guys all the luck, and I hope you guys get to go to campus soon.
Yeah,
That should be fun.